Joining me now is North Dakota Republican Congressman Kelly Armstrong, member of both the House Oversight Committee and the House Judiciary Committee. It is, of course, Oversight that is one of the three committees involved in the current inquiry now. Congressman Armstrong, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let me start with the same question I started with Mr. Meeks. Mr. Morrison, what kind of witness was he as far as you were concerned?
I think Mr. Morrison was a very good witness. I think it just goes to prove our point that we want all of these transcripts released. We want as much information out to the general public as soon as possible so the American people can decide what's going on down in the bunker.
It sounds like you're for public hearings. So in some ways, you're glad this process is going to become a more public thing. Why is that?
As somebody who sits on both the Judiciary Committee and has dealt with this impeachment farce since the first day I got into Congress and has sat through almost all of the oversight depots, I've not heard a single thing down there that shouldn't be public. I'm still concerned about how it's going to work. As somebody who's practiced criminal law for almost my entire adult life, there are procedures, there are things that go in place, and as we get here, just public hearings isn't enough. I mean, I'm not sure you can undo the damage that has already been done. I mean, this is about credibility, fairness, and due process, and I could tell you my criminal clients in federal court had more than the White House has had up to this point. But yes, I want public hearings. I want them as quickly and as fairly as possible.
What are the witnesses? One of the things that the new law is going to allow is for, if the president wants to call witnesses, he can. What witnesses do you think he should call, or what witnesses would you like to see called that haven't been?
Well, I would like to see Mr. Morrison's testimony as public as possible, but those are decisions for the White House to make. I always err on the side of transparency. The one difference, we continue to equate these things to criminal cases, but you have to remember at the end of any kind of criminal investigation, one, nothing leaks during the middle of it. For as many criticisms as I have of the Mueller report, there weren't leaks that were going out every 30 seconds to drive a narrative. But the problem when you leak specific things is that facts are stubborn things, and as the whole picture comes into play, particularly when you're dealing with the game of telephone evidence, you're starting working towards that. So I'm just going to err on the side of my constituents and anybody in the country seeing all of it.
We've seen these opening statements, and I'll be honest with you, I've been trying to be careful of just going by facts we've learned from opening statements, and I've tried to ignore the sources say this was also said inside. But just based on the opening statements, since that is something most of us have been able to read, it is more transparent than anything else about this process. Have you been concerned about the number of instances where it's clear the process wasn't followed here when it came to aid with Ukraine?
Well, am I concerned about it? First of all, I want to start with opening statements aren't even testimony. They're not part of the cross-examination. They're not part of that process. So I get testimony and evidence are two different things to begin with, particularly when they're released without any cross-examination. Also, I would argue that most of these opening statements are, it's not even hearsay because that would be equating this to some kind of official court proceeding, but it's the game of telephone. It's third hand, it's fourth hand, it's fifth hand information. And without having the ability to read those whole transcripts, it's really hard to talk about that, especially when you're somebody who's in the room, because I think those opening statements do not paint an accurate picture of what is being said.
Well, okay, but they certainly are standing by it. They're saying it under oath. Should we not take what's said in those opening statements, whether it's Ambassador Taylor, whether it's Fiona Hill, that we shouldn't take that as their testimony?
I think you should take that as their opening statement to their testimony, and when you have the whole transcript, when each sides get to read it. But I'll start with this. I think that this is abundantly clear, and this is something I've noticed in D.C. since the first day I got here. One of the things that the career establishment, bureaucratic establishment doesn't like about the president is he doesn't do things in the same way that they're used to. And I think actually that's why the guy got elected, and that's why I was proud to support him. So saying that something wasn't done properly or through proper channels does not make it illegal, does not make it improper, and does not make it impeachable by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, of course, there is an illegal standard to impeachment. As you know, it doesn't matter whether something legal or not. As we know, impeachment is a political... It's a political definition, right? We know, what's impeachable? It's like a ham sandwich. What can you indict? You can indict a ham sandwich. Doesn't mean you convict a ham sandwich.
As somebody who's served on the House Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, I can tell you with full support that this impeachment process is a purely political exercise.
Is there anything you've heard that's been disturbing to you? I'm curious because, I've talked to plenty of Republicans who are in this sort of middle ground. They don't believe it's impeachable, but they do think the president did something here that he shouldn't have done. But there is no mechanism to sort of wrap his wrists because it's either all or nothing.
Yeah, I think the answer to all of that is whenever you put yourself in this situation as somebody else, particularly somebody with President Trump's personality and those types of things, would you have done some things maybe a little different? Sure. But that doesn't rise to the point of impeachment, particularly when you're dealing with the Democratic Party that started these the second day I got here and just moves from one issue to the other. I've seen nothing remotely close to something that rises to the conduct of impeachable. And if impeachment was actually, high crimes and misdemeanors, as somebody who's done this in a court of law my entire life, I would be happy to defend the president in any real courtroom.
All right. The most important thing is prove a point to me. Are the Washington Nationals the only thing that unites Congress these days?
It's Washington Nationals are the only team you're allowed to have it be your second favorite team because they're everybody's favorite team until their other team came. But it was a great game last night. It was fantastic.
All right. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.